VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. VUCA was the notion that got my attention because it was pinpointing basically what now the elements are that are rendering things so difficult for the leaders in making decisions. The first obvious element is the volatility. A volcano in Iceland that erupts and that paralyzes all traffic and mobility in Europe. 9/11 that has a huge economical impact and social and human impact on how people think and how they see things. Uncertainty causes sometimes leaders also not to communicate their plans because they say, well, my plan is maybe accurate, but I'm not 100% sure that this is the best plan. So what happens is that they're not communicating anymore with their population, with the employees, because they don't want to be wrong. But I'm convinced that it's way better to communicate a vision with even uncertain elements in it than not to communicate anything at all. We've seen also in crisis times that people stand behind their leaders when there is a definite plan. When people would be panicking and nobody is directing them to the right issues or to the right exits, then you can have a major disaster in your organization at hand. In the world of VUCA, for instance, when we're talking about ambiguity, it means that the best advice at this moment how to treat ambiguity is to experiment more with the unknown. Leaders in the world of today and the world of tomorrow will be facing the unknown unknowns. So how can you anticipate and include that in your vision, in your strategies? Well, the best advice we can currently give, and which is also supported by the academic world, is that you experiment on smaller scales, including variables that maybe you have never thought of, and see what effect they will have on the outcome. On the other hand, for instance, with complexity and also with ambiguity, what we see is good advice to leaders would be to have very diversified teams. To give you one example, the amount of data is also growing exponentially, and that raises the complexity of making the right decisions. There's such a high number of data, variables, and so to take into account that it's almost impossible for one human being to analyze everything and to come to the right conclusion. So what we see is that some organizations are now having these very young potentials working on mining the data. On the other hand, they don't have the experience to make the right interpretation yet on what does this mean for us, what does this mean for the organization. As such, they now include people with a lot of experience, and they work closely with the young people working on the data, doing the interpretation then on what could be the best conclusion based on all the new variables and all the gigantic group of data that they have. But you need that kind of diversified approach.